People who quit a job in the heat of the moment. Which chow did you leave them to handle? Didn't get a bonus because they felt the overtime I did paid me more than the bonus they gave to everyone else. I didn't know what to say to that, so after a few hours I offered to get coffee for everyone. Then I left and never came back or contacted them again. I keep thinking that I should go back with coffee now I've been gone 10 years and just act normal. That would be the realest thing I've ever heard of a person to do. When I was a programmer at an insurance company, one of the longtime programmers had been with the company for nearly 20 years. This guy originally wrote most of the financial system himself, from scratch, and had maintained it with the help of a couple of other people. Every month he did the month-end processing and every quarter he did the quarter-end processing. Every year-end, yep, it was him. There was a change in management a couple of times, and he kept getting treated worse and worse. He was being treated unfairly, asked to do unreasonably more work than he was already doing, getting thrown under the bus, that kind of thing. He finally had enough and one morning he came in, walked to the manager's office and quit, then walked out the door. In the aftermath it took a team of 4 other people, months and months to get things back together and to a point where things were serviceable. You don't frick with your IT people, learned that crap the hard way in the army. Worked for a landscape company doing new installs. Our owner was cheap with a bad habit of constantly biting off more than he could chew. One year he asked if we wanted any part of a school project in a city we didn't live in, over 2 hours away, and we said no. He said that was fine and would just bid on one school for his crew who lived in that area. Instead he bid on multiple schools and got 3 of them. Obviously, none of us are happy about this and he claimed that he'd put us up in hotels so we wouldn't have to commute. He never did. The work itself sucked. Way more than a crew our size could handle and the owner's brother did absolutely nothing. He was supposed to be the project manager supervisor and literally all he did was play Clash of Clans on his phone and yell about people not being fast enough. After a few days, I was done. I'd grown sick of the job anyway, but this project really sealed it. Having to commute 4+ hours a day and then physically destroy myself was taking a toll fast. I woke up Friday morning, called the owner, told him I quit and to stop taking more work than he can manage. He blew up but I just hung up the phone and went back to sleep. 2 weeks later I get a call from him. He's begging me to come back because after I quit, 2 other guys did too. The project is now woefully behind schedule and he's going to get fined if things don't pick up and get finished. I told him he should have thought of that before he bit off more than he could chew and expected a small crew to do it all in a short time frame. He got quiet and then asked if a 50-cent raise would get me back. Haha no. Last time I ever heard from him and I can't find his company website anymore. 50-cent raise. 18 years old, assistant manager at a big pizza franchise. Had been working open to close for 2 weeks straight because the new GM went on vacation right after taking over the store. When she got back from her vacation she worked a half day. I opened and still closed. Then she changed the schedule and took 2 days off. This was the last straw on top of a ton of other crap piled over a year. Multiple new GMs, crappy district manager, awful store politics. I was alone during an unusually large lunch rush and was just done with everyone's crap. I had a Mac line full of orders, phones ringing, oven full of pizza, orders to be picked up, and a massive batch of dough sitting on the prep table. I said frick it. I shut the oven off, walked out, and locked the store. Didn't call anyone to let them know. It would be hours before the evening driver would roll in. No prep for the day, no dough for the day except for the blob I am sure would become a massive mess after rising 4 hours. A double-deck oven with both belts full of pies wasted and what was probably shaping to be a $1,200 lunch out the window. I hope she was well rested after her time off. Shopper's freaking drugmate. I had simply asked for better hours after working ridiculous late night hours for over a year. Instead they hired a new guy and gave him the exact hours I asked for and then had me train him. So when training wasn't going very well because new guy was super slow, they blamed me for it. Now I had a good standing with everyone at this store but I didn't need shoppers and I let a lot of crap slide every day. So again when I asked for a vacation that I deserved because I was never sick and punctual as all heck, I was denied it and the next day the manager had 4 weeks of vacation set. So to make it up to me, they offered me all these insane overtime shifts for the next 3 weeks. So I waited for the frozen deliveries to arrive that same day. The boss was packing up to go home, and when he said goodnight to me, I said, "But who is going to do this frozen delivery?" He laughed and said, "You are." So I replied, "Nope." And he became super cross, so I started laughing. "What are you laughing about?" he says. So I said, "Frick yourself. I quit." Now there was no one to finish the night shift. He immediately asks for the uniform. LOL nah. I said, "Frick yourself. I quit." I had never done that before or since. Uniform went in the trash. That's the crap I'm looking for. Of like that instant karma type crap. Always worked the close shift at a fast food joint. My managers love to hand out citations for any little thing. The policy was 3 strikes and you're out. I had 2 strikes left and was told to clean up the entire front end and bathroom in an hour or risk getting a 3rd strike. To put things in perspective, I had to close the register, count the money, clean up the front end, restock everything, sweep and mop the floors, and clean the entire bathroom, including the toilets, for basically $8.05. I walked into the bathroom just to see what to expect. Looked like someone had finished projectile crapping all over the toilet and then decided to pee next to the sink. I knew I wouldn't be able to do everything in an hour and that I would get fired regardless. So, I took my uniform off and walked home shirtless. Should have thrown it onto the floor. I worked as a small engine repair tech for a larger company. I am also in the National Guard. I had gotten hurt and needed physical therapy, and 1 or 2 days a month I would have to miss because of an extended drill weekend. Well, my boss didn't like that and she decided that she would punish me by making me stay later than everyone else. She was punishing me for going to physical therapy for a workplace injury and for being a soldier. Now, you may be thinking, having to stay late to keep up on your work doesn't sound like that much of a punishment. Normally, you would be right, but trust me, she was doing a lot more to make sure it was a punishment. Well, one day after being told that I was not given approval for the 1 day of vacation I asked for 3 months in advance to go see the eclipse and generally being treated like a slave, I was like, why am I doing this to myself, and clocked out at the end of my shift. That next Monday after drill weekend, I showed up, packed up all my tools and took off. My boss started freaking out when she saw what I was doing. I left and found out that me leaving cost her over $100k because she had to ship my workload to another state to get another shop to work on them. That meant she needed to pay to ship them, and then pay to ship them back, and since her shop didn't do any of the actual work, she never saw any money for any of the repairs. It was over 80 riding mowers. Holy heck. I hope she learned her lesson. I get frustrated with people like this. People who don't treat other people like people. Super happy to hear that she was out 100k. I was a hostess for Dennis in Arkansas. The waitresses continuously degraded me, and on top of that, my manager is a functioning alcoholic. The cash registers broke trillions of times and I kept getting yelled at for crap I literally had no control over. One day the registers went down the same day the AC went down. I had plenty of people coming up yelling at me because I wasn't getting tickets out, nor was I getting anyone cashed out. People were piling up. I was getting yelled at because I wasn't sitting people fast enough because I was dealing with those who had exact change so I could get them out and put it in the register when it came back online. Suddenly, I heard one of the waitresses comment on how red my face is. "I'm dehydrated," I replied, as I'm not allowed to have drinks up front. I had a water bottle hidden, but I could only take a few stealthy sips an hour. A waitress found it during the ocean of people raising heck with me and took it from me. I lost my crap and quit later that day. I left midway through the ocean of people to attend to my mom during her doctor's appointment. Dennis is funny online, but every Dennis I've encountered is a real tshow. So glad I don't work with people anymore. I spent some time working at a gas station where my supervisor would take about 20 smoke breaks a day while demanding that the rest of us work harder. After several days of this, and my boss not doing anything about it, I quit in the middle of a pizza order rush. I worked in shipping and receiving for a health food store. Over the past 5 days everyone else had quit, including supervisors and department heads. I was working a frozen shipment, my regular job. Dairy came in, cheese came in, A bit over $130 Huge fancy cheese in whole wheels. A large generally organic dairy shipment. I refused to sign any dang thing. GM demanded I sign and put it away. Signing was already out of my pay grade. Those numbers made it way the heck out of my pay grade. He then demanded I put it all away. It would have taken the rest of my shift for my own work. I just quit. Frick it. Heard he signed it in and it all went to waste. He was fired. Sweet moldy justice. Got offered a kitchen job by a friend of mine who was going to be head chef at a new place that was opening. Started there and it was a pretty cool job, until about a month later when the owner yelled at my head chef friend in front of a dining room full of guests. So my friend put in his notice right on the spot and finished his 2 weeks where he was replaced by a new chef. New chef was nothing short of a Nazi, always berating employees. Nothing was ever good enough. And he especially had a hard-on for me and was constantly giving me crap over anything he could think of. I found out that my chef friend got a spot at a big theme restaurant. Guitars on the wall hint. That opened recently, so I requested half a day off for a doctor's appointment. Went there and got hired on the spot. Then called the restaurant and told the hostess to tell dickhead chef that I wasn't coming in for the rest of the shift. And every shift after that since I was quitting. But here's where it gets good. I went back over a week later to get my last paycheck, and dickhead chef basically cornered me, told me what I did was unprofessional, and since he heard about where I was now he was going to call my supervisor and tell him how unprofessional I am. Then he asked me the name of my supervisor, to which this brought a crap-eating grin to my face as I enthusiastically told him the name of my supervisor, who just so happened to be my chef friend who just quit and who this Nazi butthole just replaced. I swear it was like watching a big balloon that rapidly deflated. He just had dumbfounded look on his face as he muttered out, "Oh, well, tell him I said hi." The best part was that his assistant chef was nearby, who really wasn't fond of him either, and he was trying to keep from busting out laughing. Walked out of there feeling like a boss. Bonus. About a month after I left, butthole chef made the mistake of pee off a dishwasher because he forgot to clock for his shift, and even though butthole chef knew dang well he was there the whole time, he refused to make the adjustment and told him tough crap, you learned a lesson, meaning he just worked his full shift for nothing. Now this dishwasher was a big black dude who was built like a Steelers linebacker, so he grabbed butthole chef in a bear hug and started slamming him against the wall as hard as he could. My ex-girlfriend was working the host stand and told me she kept hearing this dull thumping sound coming from the back of the restaurant. Then one of the kitchen workers came running up. Butthole chef screamed to him to go get help, and he was laughing so hard that he couldn't tell them what was happening right away and had to catch his breath first. The place then folded about less than a month later. Famous footwear. During the interview, manager wouldn't shut up about how she wanted the other person but would hire me just to give me a chance. Worked there for 5 shifts. On day 2 she went and asked my previous managers about my sex life. The one that really peeved me was she specifically asked my last employer who was employing my roommate while my roommate was on shift if I was sleeping with my roommate. On day 3 she got mad at me for doing something wrong after refusing to train me. I asked numerous times about pricing shoes. She would just do one silently without showing me where to look on the scanner or what exactly she was scanning or anything, and then hand it back as if she had retrained me. On day 4 she berated me saying if I quit it would royally frick her vacation up, which was the only reason she hired me over the other person. But now she won't have time to train a new person to cover her vacation, which was still 2 months out. My roommate put in notice at her job on this day. On day 5 manager hears that roommate got a better job. She confronts me saying I better not quit and then asks if I planned on putting in 2 weeks. I tell her I'd been considering because she refused to train me and she was asking inappropriate questions to my previous employers. She went off on me, yelling at me on the sales floor telling me not to ever come back. She then put that she had terminated me in my paperwork due to insubordination and theft, as well as sending my one and only paycheck to the wrong address 5 times before I finally got HR to just cancel the old checks and mail it directly to me. She was quite the C. I was working at a small bar hotel in some remote place. The manager was an absolute jackass, just rude to staff and the customers and unpleasant to be around. There was only a small handful of staff there expected to work all day every day, myself included. We were casuals. I worked 9 long days in a row, finishing really late and getting up really early in the morning to come back and clean the hotel, with not many hours in between, pretty sure illegal in Ors. It also wasn't that close to my house, about a 40 minutes drive each way. I had a day off after my long stint doing lots of shifts, which I was excited about and planned a nice day out with my BF, but the manager rings me the day before to ask me to cover someone's shift who wanted it off. I said no, I had plans. He lost his crap and told me when I started I agreed to work weekends and I need to be available. Well, yeah, I worked every weekend since I started and I would have been available, but I wasn't rostered on originally. Decided I had enough of being treated like crap and the money wasn't worth it to dread coming to work. I don't like confrontation and felt bad my friend got me the job, so I wrote a letter quitting and planned to leave it on manager's desk and GTFO there. Plan half failed cause I got asked to stay back at work and panicked cause manager was out, so it was perfect to leave the letter on his desk, but if I stayed back he'd be back and I wouldn't have the chance. Stayed back for a bit, then decided stuff it, I'm leaving, so said I forgot I had an appointment. Dropped the letter and ran. I was casual so didn't have to give notice. Manager has a big party booked in for the next day and I was his only staff who could work it. Not anymore. He rang me non-stop for 2 days and I ignored it. Best decision ever. That was pretty mild up until he had people coming in the next day, so when that crap hit the fan he rung my phone for 2 days. Nice. I worked as a porter at a pretty busy bakery once. The owner must have been at least £500, and being that this was a family business, his wife ran the front of the shop. It wasn't long before she started making passes at me and grabbing me in extremely inappropriate ways. I was 18 at the time and she must have been in her 50s. Either way, this was very unwelcome attention and eventually I got fed up and quit. I specifically chose a holiday, Valentine's Day, because I knew that they would be swamped. I was tasked with cleaning everything up at the end of the day and prepping everything for the next day. Needless to say, I left everything the way it was. Did not prep a single thing and dumped a bunch of flour on the floor and spelled out I quit in the flour. I had a lot of angry voicemails the next day, but I never regretted doing what I did. That's messed up that she could get away with it. Worked at a KFC. A kid had shat into his hands and flung it at the ceiling, where it promptly fell down and splattered on the floor. From what I had gathered, sometimes you have to do crappy, no pun intended, things in your job. I wish we had the staff to be able to do crappy things. We're supposed to have 4 people out front, 3 serving packing, 1 on the floor. They only had me because they wouldn't get anyone else in. I had to straight up tell people, yes ma'am, I know there's crap on the floor in the toilet, but I can't clean it right now because there's 20 people in the queue and I have to pack orders. People in the middle of the queue started shouting open another till like I can just magic people from thin air. A woman waiting for her order is giving me the evilest freaking glare that I'm taking an order rather than packing hers, and I just freaking gave up. I had 2 hours left in my shift. It was only going to get busier, so I just left the front, grabbed my crap from the locker room and walked out without saying a word. All I wanted was to get home, log on to WoW, crack open a beer and wind down in what ended up being a near orgasmic level of peace. So yeah, there was maybe 20 people waiting in line, including people who had paid for food and were waiting. Crap on the ceiling and floor in the men's toilets and nobody to serve customers. Quite the shit show. I regret leaving people there who had paid for food, but there's only so much you can handle, especially when it feels like you've got 20 odd people mad at you and no one to back you up. All the buttholes who can only feel better about themselves by berating overwhelmed employees got what they deserved though. I quit a few hours after my shift was over, but the next day was one of our most physically intense work days. For 6 months my supervisors kept promising a raise promotion that never came. No matter how many more responsibilities I got or how well I worked, all I got were empty promises. It also didn't help that my mental physical health was starting to suffer. I sucked it up for a long time hoping that things would eventually get better, but they didn't. When I had enough, I sent in a text message to the group chat that all of the workers were a part of and said something like, don't expect me at work tomorrow or in the future. I quit. Once I sent in that message, a few co-workers tried reaching out to me and one of my supervisors tried to get in touch. I assumed they were trying to get me to change my mind, but I was set on what I did. So I never spoke to any of my former supervisors, and it was a bit of a while before I fully opened up to my former co-workers. Besides having to deal with a physically intense shift the next day, I left them with a lot to handle. Even though I held the lowest position at that job, my supervisors knew that they could rely on me, so I had the work of 2-3 people that was more suitable for an assistant manager. Since I was on good terms with one of my former co-workers, every now and then she let me know how things were. They ended up hiring 2 new guys to try and fill the hole I left. But as far as I know, they were never able to match what I was able to do. Prior to them being hired, my supervisors tried to spread out all of the work that I left behind. That resulted in the employees that worked there being overworked and it all turned into a crap show. 3 months after I left, my former supervisors were still trying to get me to come back, but I didn't want to. Eventually, I found out that my head supervisor was lying about the promotion raise that I was promised. It was never on its way. It turned out he did the same to other workers at this job and he turned most of the employees against him. When everyone found out what a piece of crap he was and how big of a problem he was, he decided to transfer out rather than be fired. It took a few months, but after I quit, a few other workers either left on good terms or had their contracts come to an end and chose not to come back. I like to believe that me quitting was the final straw that eventually led to all of the change that happened at this job. I had something similar happen to me. Promised a raise for months and months. I finally had enough and found a new job. Old job kept calling me at new job to come back. Nope. I worked at a sub shop for 2 years. The last 2 weeks we were so short that I was working a 70-hour work week and I wasn't even being worked the hardest. I was loyal to the company but the management wasn't fantastic and I was severely underpaid. I had a friend who knew about my work situation and without telling me referred me to his much better job. The job called one day while I was working a double at my sub shop. After I got off work I went by the place and was hired. I immediately called the owner of my store and quit. They were so short-handed that there wasn't enough people for a shift. They had 5 total employees. But now I have way better insurance, and great management. I'm happy with jumping off the boat. Sometimes owners of restaurants or ma and pa restaurants are so cheap, they don't want to spend more money hiring staff. It sucks. Liquorland. After being lied to, screwed out of a healthy redundancy package that I was entitled to and had a bevy of false accusations placed against me so they could fire me. None of them stuck because they were made up. I quit in my own special way. I first waited until my store manager, area manager and state manager all were on annual leave and I'd be running the shop. I then got a doctor's note giving me 3 weeks off work for a strained back muscle. That afternoon, on Friday, the busiest trading day of the week, half an hour after taking over I wrote my resignation emails. One went to the CEO, upper management and board members detailing how I'd been screwed over by my managers for the previous 18 months. Threatening legal action and going to the press if my leave payouts were withheld. The second was to my area manager's email, who was uncontactable on leave, stating my 2 weeks notice to resign and attaching a copy of my doctor's certificate that said I was unable to work. Then, I shut and locked the doors, threw the keys in the safe and went home. I turned my phone off, drank 2 bottles of wine and played the frick out of some Final Fantasy. On the following Monday, I checked my bank account to find all my annual leave paid out and my 2 weeks of notice paid out as sick leave. Still, frick you Liquorland. I refused to buy at any Westfarmers owned store thanks to the way I was treated. This was well thought out and gangster AF. Kudos. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.